can have these kind of conversations?
Well, I think the added value of foundations coming together around peace and security issues is that they can share their peer learning, which I think is very important, because a lot of foundations will either be working in specific conflict areas or around particular themes of concern to them. And sometimes we get caught in our own silos, I think, whereas particularly on peace and security issues, clearly sort of the global dimension and the broader contextual policy dimension are very important for locating the added value of their work. Clearly, on the one hand, the European Union is going through major changes in terms of locating its foreign policy. But on the other hand, it also has got itself tied in a principle of subsidiarity in terms of member states also having a recognised position in terms of influencing policy. And particularly foreign policy, the whole balance between getting a European Union-wide policy and that principle of subsidiarity is, I think, a real quandary, because clearly there are different interests there. Now, the role of foundations in that sort of situation is, I think, actually sort of putting it up to Europe to sort of say they should not settle at the lowest common denominator, because very often we see that happening, given sort of the statement that was made around the attack on the humanitarian flotilla in terms of going to Gaza. I think now is a good time to set up a network of peace and security in Europe, but I think we need to be quite clear about why we are setting that network up. I think it needs to come out of the interest and of foundations themselves, seeing the use of that network. You know, I don't think it's something that perhaps that the European Foundation Centre can be left to actually make all the running. Foundations that are working in this area must see the use of it in terms of exchange of learning, in terms of sharing information. I mean, this is a very complex area, and in terms of relating to each other as they work at different levels. So something like my own foundation that works at a very local level, we have a lot of lessons about what peace building means in our own communities, but we would need the expertise of other foundations who are perhaps working at the level of European institutions, because we don't have the resources and time to look at that. Similarly, for those that are working at perhaps a macro level, they need the reality check of what's going on the ground to actually sort of say, well, okay, we may have the sort of the principles right, we may have the policies right, but actually if we don't have the implementation right, it doesn't really make much difference. So I think it is a matter of recognising what different people working at different levels can bring to that network, and then actually sort of being able to weave a network that actually has an added value dimension.